Today we're going to talk about a consequence called polarization. Now you may have heard this term as this is something that certain sunglasses use in order to decrease the amount of light that enters your eyes. Now when light travels or when many waves travel, they all oscillate in various directions. Those are two types of orientations that the wave can travel if it was going from left to right. And there's also many other ways. It could also travel like this or whatever. Basically, light or EM waves or many waves travel in loads of different directions and orientations. Now, polarization is a special effect that only applies to transverse waves. And examples of transverse waves are your electromagnetic waves like light, infrared waves, radio waves, etc. Now, this wave that we have here is an unpolarized wave. This means that the wave is oscillating in every single direction possible. Now, what polarization is let's say we take this wave and we pass it through this vertical filter that looks something like this. When it passes through this filter, only waves oscillating in this direction will pass through. So this filter blocks out any other wave that is not oriented in this direction. And this is quite useful because it can decrease the amount of waves that reaches a certain source. And you only get waves moving in one direction. Now, if I had, let's say, this horizontal filter, then the waves that could only pass are those moving in this horizontal direction. And this is quite useful. There are many ways that we can use this in real life. And the best example of that is your sunglasses. Sunglasses have several of these filters to polarize the light, so a much lower amount of light reaches your eyes. So let's say I had this source that's emitting transverse waves or EM waves in all directions. And I then pass it through this vertical filter. And now this vertical filter is fixed. But I now have this other filter here that is rotatable. And what that means is I can orient it in any direction I want. So that means I can orient it like this, or even this, any direction that I want to. And on this other side of this rotatable filter, I have a receiver. And this receiver is going to plot a graph of intensity. And it's also connected to this rotatable filter, so it can measure the angle at which this filter is at. So it's going to plot a graph of intensity against the angle theta that this rotatable filter is at. So what happens at 0 degrees? Now at 0 degrees, we're going to assume that that means that this second filter is vertically upright. So it's going to be in the same orientation as we see in the diagram. Well, that means that any light that passes through filter 1 is also going to pass through filter 2. So we're going to see a maximum amount of intensity when this second filter is oriented at 0 degrees. Now as we start to rotate the filter, we know that less and less light is going to be able to go through this filter. So it's going to start decreasing up until it goes to a point where it is completely horizontal. When it goes completely horizontal, this is going to happen at 90 degrees. And what we're going to see here is that it actually reaches a minimum. No light passes through this filter. But as we continue to increase the angle, rotate it further, we can see that it's starting to get more and more oriented back to its maximum level because it's starting to get more and more vertical up until the point where it's rotated completely 180 degrees. This filter is now vertical again, so it's going to produce yet another maximum. And this pattern here is going to repeat for every 180 degrees. So at 360 there's going to be another maximum, and at 540 degrees there'll be another maximum. But for 90 degrees and 270 degrees, you will see complete minimums. So this graph is basically a positive cosine graph, or you could even say it's a cosine squared graph. Now, the best piece of advice I can give you after watching that video is to go off and practice some past papers or topic questions. These are single-handedly the best way to help you commit the content you've learned to memory. Obviously, go and do all the YouTube stuff of liking, subscribing, and if you found this video helpful, feel free to go and watch any of my other ones.